Hey guys, welcome to the chat. I think I see awake and peaceful. Let me know if you can hear me. Welcome to the chat. I also see, let me make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly. I also see Kai. Hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I'm hoping that everyone will be able to trickle on over from wherever they are on YouTube and start this live chat with me. Hello, Cherries Jubilee. Welcome to the chat. So glad to see you as well. Okay, I'm gonna mess this up. Samik. I hope I said that right. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. You guys are probably confused. You're like, what is going on? I thought this was at 7:30 p.m. And unfortunately, my mom last minute, she's like, I want to go shopping. I want to do something with you tonight. And I'm like, oh my God, you chose the best night ever, mom. So I literally have to go shop with my mother tonight. So that's the only reason why we're doing this at 6:30, 6:45. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you as well. So I couldn't do this live chat yesterday, so I'm pushing it into today. So I'm hoping that exactly, Cherries Jubilee, right? Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to have you as well, Rad Samik Maker. Yes, I'm glad you made it as well. Hi, Deb. Welcome to the chat. I was just telling everybody that my mom last minute tonight, she's like, I want to go shopping. So I have to go clothes shopping with my mom before 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So I'm like, you chose a grand time, mom, to want to take me shopping and have me just stand there and help you look for clothes. So so. Deb says, glad you took time for yourself yesterday. Thank you so much, Deb. I was so exhausted. I was exhausted. I was literally, I felt like I was going to take a nap in one of my sessions that I have with a family. That's how tired I was. And I'm never present like that. So thank you guys for being so sweet about that. Elizabeth said, I didn't think there would be a chat tonight. I'm surprised. I know. And that's because I couldn't do one on Friday. So yeah, Awake and Peaceful's cracking up. Yep. So, this is how it is when you have a mom like my mom. She's colorful, she's engaging, she's something. Um, so let's jump in, guys. Yeah, Elizabeth, maybe you are lucky. I'm glad you could come tonight. Let's jump into some of this, okay? Because this is going to be a short live chat. I have a video coming out for you guys tomorrow on Sunday that's going to break this down a little bit more. Tell me if any of you have experienced trauma reenactments. Let me explain it. So, a trauma reenactment is basically this. It is your mind, the psychology of who you are, your mind trying to help you organize, reorganize, and cope with the reality of a previous trauma. So I'll repeat that. It helps you cope with, organize, and maybe even integrate within your now reality a previous history of trauma. Reenactments can happen in many different ways. I'll mention a few ways before I leave tonight. But trauma reenactments can happen in relationships. So, an example of that would be, let's say you've been psychologically and emotionally abused by your parents. They were narcissistic, they were emotionally immature, you were abused for many years under these parents, and now you're an adult. So, if you've spent, let's say, plus or minus 15 years of your life under these abusive, narcissistic family members or narcissistic parents, and now you're 25 years of age, and now you're beginning to date and be a part of relationships and friendships and romantic relationships where you are now in your mind and in your heart reliving that former trauma. And in a sense, although it may be frightening, although it may be destabilizing, you may find yourself finding it difficult to walk away or finding it difficult to shut the door because it is familiar. You understand the dynamic, you're used to that traumatic dynamic, or as Sigmund Freud might put it in some of his previous research, you are actually trying to gain mastery over that childhood trauma that you've experienced. It's almost like putting yourself right in the middle, smack dead in the middle of the trauma as an adult so that you can gain mastery over what happened to you as a child. I hope that makes sense. Sigmund Freud was really messed up, okay? But some of his theories, I'm like, that was pretty good, Sigmund Freud. I kind of like that theory. And so his theory is that if you've had a traumatic childhood, most likely you're going to grow up and become an adult who's going to kind of relive that. You're going to relive that childhood trauma by putting yourself in situations that is similar to your childhood trauma. And it really is your unconscious. You don't even know what's happening sometimes. It's your unconscious conscious attempt to gain mastery over what happened to you as a child. It puts you in a almost like a paradox, right? You don't want to be abused. You don't want to be re-traumatized, and yet your mind and your heart is telling you, I need to stay here, whether that's because it's familiar and you're afraid to move, or because, again, you're trying to conquer that pain, that trauma, that experience that you've had in your past. Now, there's a lot of different ways to understand reenactments, and I'm not going to go through all of those in this live chat tonight, guys, because tomorrow I'm going to be talking about it and picking and pulling it apart for you in my video at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm just kind of touching the surface with you for the next 15 to minutes, plus or minus. But when you watch my video tomorrow, you're going to see, how I tease apart different experiences of trauma reenactments. Let me mention this too, guys. It doesn't always have to be, and I should have mentioned this earlier, it doesn't always have to be a relationship that you're reenacting. It could just be patterns of behavior. So, let's take that same childhood trauma with narcissistic, emotionally immature parents, and let's say you've spent 15 plus or minus years under these parents. Now you're an adult. Well, your behavioral patterns are starting to look like your parents' patterns. And then your own child's patterns may start to look like your patterns and your parents' patterns and your grandparents' patterns. And so what do we call that? Intergenerational trauma. Intergenerational trauma can be re-experiencing a previous trauma. And it doesn't have to be your trauma. It could be that you're re-experiencing your mother's trauma. You're re-experiencing or recreating in your now your father's trauma because you've been around it, right? So you kind of develop like this blueprint of how your family operates, and so therefore patterns of behavior shift over time. All right, let me go back to the live chat, okay, guys? I don't want to miss anything because I'm going to be on here for like a split second. So let's go back here. So hello, Lisa. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you on. Miranda, good evening to you. Welcome to the chat. Alexis Raposa, hello. Welcome to the chat. She says, every single day. Oh my God, I believe it. And I talk a little bit about that in my video tomorrow coming up, where you do relive trauma every day. If you have unresolved complex PTSD, if you have unresolved PTSD, it doesn't have to be complex, it could just be PTSD, you're most likely going to relive that every single day of your life if it's unhealed or poorly treated. Because what happens is, I told one of my clients this the other day, she's been in some very serious traumatic situations over the past 3 years. And I told her this, you're almost like Bubble Boy. You're bumping up against different edges and jagged edges, and you're trying to squeeze through these really thin and tight walls in your life. And so getting all those scrapes and bumps and bruises on you is really the process of re-experiencing trauma every single day of your life. And every day is a traumatic experience for her. There's a such idea as almost like a compounding trauma, right? You have that baseline trauma, which might be childhood trauma, but then on top of that baseline trauma, you have another trauma and another trauma and another trauma, and that turns into complex PTSD. So you're right. When you say every single day, there are people who experience it every single day. Thank you, Elizabeth. She says you're lucky to have such a mom. Thank you. I agree. I'm going to show my mom this when we end. She's going to be like, oh my God. She blushes and gets all happy when she sees your comments, So thank you, Elizabeth. Awake and Peaceful says, just went through that with a guy I had to cut off today. Whoa. So this is timely. It was like talking to the first narcissist I dated. Yeah, absolutely. Have you guys ever wondered, why do I keep dating the same guys? Why do I keep dating the same girlfriends, the same boyfriend? Why do they all seem similar? Do I have a type? Am I cursed? What is this? And when my clients come to my office and ask me that, I just tell them, look, some of us are drawn to a certain character, a certain personality, a certain what's the word I'm looking for? Chemistry. And that doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong with you. It just means either you're attaching to that person because they remind you of someone, or they make you feel a certain way, or there's a void and you need a certain something. That's what causes those patterns of choosing the same people over and over. It's not anything wrong with you. It's, who you are, right? And what you might need. And for people who have PTSD and complex PTSD, sometimes it's trauma doing all the talking. And then you end up in another romantic situation and another and another. It's complicated. Rat Samik Maker says, I've had a lot lately due to my parents. Luckily, my husband and in-laws have gone through this and are patient with me. Oh, that's wonderful. Anytime you can marry into a family and they get you, I think that's a total blessing. I really do. Elizabeth says, I was emotionally abused today by my mom. Oh my goodness. Oh, Elizabeth, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's. I think you've shared a couple of things on the channel over time, and it sounds just like a complicated dynamic between you and your mom. So, I'm very sorry to hear that. That's hard. That's hard. Cherry's Jubilee says, all I wanted to be in life is a mother. It's the fine thing I can't be so. Oh, it's a thing I can't be, so I adopted the world. I'll be your mom. Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. I'm going to touch on something briefly too in a couple of minutes. Um, Cherry's Jubilee, that's an interesting thing that you say because it kind of reminds me of the idea of reparenting yourself, right? You didn't have the kind of parents that you needed, desired, wanted. So now you have to reparent yourself and give yourself emotionally and psychologically everything you didn't get. And so for you to say, I adopted the world because I couldn't have children of my own, is really sweet. In a sense, it's what we would call adaptive coping. So you're adapting to your situation and to your trauma in a very healthy way. There are some people who actually go into therapy. They become a psychotherapist. That wasn't my. I'm going to tell you, this is not my reason. But some people go into psychotherapy or becoming a doctor because they want to care for people that they couldn't care for in their personal life. Does that make sense? So they couldn't save their own family, so they become a therapist or a doctor so they could save other people. That's called adaptive coping. You're adapting to the traumatic experience that you've had, or the unlucky or painful experience that you've had, in a healthy way. That's your way of coping. And it's not a bad thing. It can be if you're obsessive. It can't be if you're healthy. Kia says, yes, indeed. Reenactment happened in my current relationship, and I've been able to connect my emotions to what happened recently and in my past childhood. Yes, I actually encourage you guys to do a couple of things to kind of help yourself identify trauma reenactments in your world. One is to journal, because if you're a writer, if you journal, what you're doing is giving yourself a visual, but you're also giving your mind some therapy, because your mind has to process what you're writing down. And if you write down how your current situation is similar to your childhood trauma, you're actually processing your trauma in a therapeutic way. That's what I would have you do if you came into my office to see me. I would say, let's start this healing process by writing down how your current behaviors, mindset, attitudes have negatively associated to your childhood trauma. So I might do that live with you guys in the future somewhere. Lisa says, second generation addiction, mom then, brother now. Yes, there you go. That's trauma reenactment at its finest. My mother did A, B, and C, and so now I'm doing A, B, and C. And it really is intergenerational trauma. Awake and Peaceful says, I promised myself if I ever feel like I'm reliving my trauma with someone, they are cut off and blocked. Yeah, there you go. Because what happens is you almost become you almost become bait or prey for abusers in the world when you reenact your trauma, because you're in a vulnerable space when you're reenacting your trauma, especially when it's unhealthy reenactment. So when you're reenacting an abusive marriage, you're reenacting an abusive childhood, you're reenacting sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse, whatever that situation is. If you're reenacting a situation with a person and you continue to do so in relationships, yes, you need to block that person and block off and cut off and say, nope, we're not doing this, because now I'm reliving this in a way that's almost obsessive and addictive. And you can actually get really obsessed with the process of experiencing those cyclic or continual relationships. And then you get stuck in this rut. And that's where codependency and traumatic bonding come in. So it gets really deep, guys, sadly. Alexis Raposa says, sometimes I go back and read abusive messages that my parents have sent me to try and make sense of what happened. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Alexis? I think that's really smart to do. If you can tolerate it and not have trauma symptoms as a result of going back, I think that's fantastic. And here's why. Again, when you're kind of journaling and writing things out, or you're looking at messages, you're making your brain process in a safe environment what has happened to you. Sigmund Freud, for example, I don't even, why am I mentioning him today? I don't even like the guy. Sigmund Freud, in the past, in his re-traumatization studies and cases with his clients, he looked at how journaling, going through messages, you know, talking freely on a couch in his office really was a therapeutic experience for the mind, because it's making you go back, reprocess, and then reflect on where you are now, if that makes sense. So Alexis, I think that's actually a wise thing to do. I do. Hold on, guys. My mom's calling me. Hold on, guys. Okay, hold on. I'm live, mom. Hold on. All right, guys. I just said to my mom, I'm like, I'm live. You can't be calling me. Okay, let me keep reading. Grinding towards my best life. Hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to see you. Says, my two adult daughters are my triggers. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to talk about triggers too, probably in the next live chat. Hi Cheryl, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you as well. Hello. Searching for Truth says, would you say that parents not letting you out with friends was abusive? I mean, it really does depend on what the reason was for not letting you out with friends, right? If they're trying to hide something or keep you feeling trapped or keep you isolated or keep you withdrawn from other people, then that would be abusive, I think. But it really just depends on what the scenario is. That's a hard question. Hello, welcome to the chat. I'm going to say Jesus El Savor. I hope I got that right. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I'm actually going to sign off in a couple minutes here. It says, good morning, everyone. Let's keep persevering and strive to be good people. Yes, thank you for that reminder. I love that. Thank you. Dragon Man Sassin, hello. Welcome to the chat as well. Rads. Oh man, I think Deb is trying to help me pronounce something again. I can't. If you've been with me for a while, you probably know I can hardly pronounce things. Okay. Sam Mitch. Oh, sandwich maker. Is that what it is? Rad sandwich maker. Okay, I bet you that's what it is. Thank you, Deb. I think that's what it is. Hi, Caitlin Brown. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Yes, me too, Cherry's Jubilee. She says, I love how we help with names. Oh, yeah, I love that too. I love that too. Oh, that's so sweet, Cherry's Jubilee. She says, I'm also so proud of all of us for how far we have come. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I tell people who are new to my channel, I welcome you to my live chats because my live chats are the most supportive, loving community. I have truly been blessed to have a wonderful community of subscribers. So that's a sincere thank you to you. I love seeing you guys communicate in the chat box. So I'm with you, Cherries Jubilee. I agree. I agree. All right, guys, let me mention two final things, and then I'm going to look at the chat box one more time, answer some questions, talk to you just for a couple seconds, and then we got to go because my mom's like, I don't want to be late to the clothing store, okay? So, Indira, I hope I said that right. Hello, welcome to the chat. Says hello, first time catching you live. So glad you can make it. Hopefully, you will catch me next week, and I will be on for at least 35 minutes to 45 minutes with you guys. I'll be on a lot longer than tonight. So. Okay, all right. So let me mention two things before I go. All right, guys, because this might be helpful to you. So there's two forms of reenactment. I'm going to talk about it more tomorrow in my video, but the first form of reenactments would be adaptive, and the second is maladaptive. Now, adaptive reenactments is really the process of recognizing recognizing that you are actually reenacting something, that you're reliving an experience from the past. You're reliving a traumatic relationship, a traumatic situation, a traumatic mindset, a traumatic, whatever, an attitude. You're reliving that in the now. And it's very easy for you to disengage, right? You can shut the door. You can say, you know what? I don't think a relationship between the two of us is healthy. Whatever. You can do whatever you need to get out of that traumatic mindset that you may find yourself in. It's basically, I can slam the door when I need to. It's a very flexible, healthy way of adapting to reenactments. I'll put it that way. Not re-traumatization, but reenactments. Now, let me just clarify really briefly, because I don't think I mentioned this at the start, that reenactments can be positive and negative. But in this chat and in my video tomorrow, I'm talking about what's called maladaptive reenactments, meaning that you're reenacting your trauma from the past in negative ways. It's keeping you stuck, like you're in quicksand and it sinks you, right? The maladaptive reenactment style of living and existing is, I was sexually abused as a child, for example, and now I've become an adult predator. Or, I watched domestic violence growing up in my family household, and now I also beat up my spouse, right? That's a maladaptive coping style. It's a maladaptive reenactment because it's not helping you, right? It's actually getting you further and further into a very unhealthy way of existing. Healthy or adaptive coping styles or reenactments are healthy because you have gained mastery over it. You're no longer that situation that's traumatic. You're no longer its slave. You're very flexible. You use healthy coping skills. You function in a really healthy way. You can handle it. Okay. Let me also state briefly the relationship between novelty and familiarity. That's also an issue with reenactments. If you're reacting, let's say, a childhood trauma with an abusive parent, and now you have an abusive girlfriend or wife, for example, you know, you're kind of at a crossroads, right? Do I leave the relationship and create this new experience, or do I stay in this relationship because it's familiar and try to cope and survive? And sadly, a lot of people stay in negative relationships because it's familiar, and that is a safe situation for them versus novelty, which is, I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to find somebody new that's healthy, right? So those two terms, novelty and familiarity, is important as well. All right, guys, let me look at the chat box. I don't want to miss anything. Oh man, that is so funny. Awake and Peaceful says journaling and sitting outside when it rains have been my meditation these days. Ooh, yeah. I love when it rains and I'm at home and it's cloudy out and I have my bunny slippers on and I have my notebook and all my pens, and yeah, yeah, I'm with you. Okay. Jenny Hughes, hello, welcome to the chat. Says Cherry's Jubilee. That is funny. She is funny. I swear. Some of the things I see her say, I'm like, oh my God, did she just say that? You'll learn if you're new to my live chats that everybody in this chat box has a personality, and you start to like, you kind of attach to them because it's so cool how different you guys are and yet so integrated. I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Cherry's Jubilee, for reminding everyone to like the chat. Thank you so much. I love that. Hello, M. I don't want to miss you. I'm so glad I didn't miss you. Hello. Welcome as well. Okay, all right, guys, I'm gonna sign off, okay, or I'm gonna get in trouble with my mom. So she wants to go. I will see you guys tomorrow if you can make my video at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, I say this every single live chat. I truly do love you guys. You guys are so supportive of me and of each other. I love to see it. I will see you in the next live chat, but I'll also be in the chat box for tomorrow, which is Sunday. So I will see you then. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, post them in the description box or in the live chat. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you so much. See you soon.